us as we start another interesting Alliance on the Move program. I know we're in the middle of our Pagua celebrations. We had Pagua yesterday, and I know everybody's so happy and so grateful for an extra long weekend. I'm glad that everyone is safe, and we want you to continue to be safe. This evening, I've got the three big wigs, I can call them, in our program tonight. And I must say, last time you saw me a week ago, it was an all-girls group. And this is almost an all-man's program tonight. I'm happy to introduce Mr. Kemraj Ramjatan, founder of the Alliance for Change and Member of Parliament. And also we've got David Patterson, chairman of the Alliance for Change and Member of Parliament also. And also Nigel Hughes, who is the current leader of the Alliance for Change. Welcome, gentlemen. How are you doing this evening?
I'm doing all right and fine.
Glad to be here. Happy Holi to everybody. I mean, I know it was yesterday. And obviously, equity in gender balance you must have. So therefore, the guys are trying to compete with the girls from last week.
No, I like that. Actually, I saw a photograph of the other opposition party meeting with the Private Sector Commission, and I was very distressed. There were actually 17 men in the photograph and one woman.
One lady, so, yep, I noticed that.
So I compliment the AFC for always taking a stand and promoting real gender equality and gender equity. So, gentlemen, without saying too much on other issues, we got a packed program. But I really wanted to start off with looking at the current challenges that the rice farmers are having. We are coming straight out of DTV Channel 8 in Berbice. And I know both Kemraj and Nigel had meetings with the rice farmers a couple of weeks ago. And it was very interesting to see the PPP representatives jump in as soon as you all had left. So you must have been doing something good. So either Kemraj, maybe you could start us off with a little update on how the farmers are doing. And, anyone else can join in after.
Thanks very much, Kathy. And of course, to the Barbicians who are watching, and of course, the country as a whole, I must say happy Holi too, for especially our Hindu brethren and Sithrin. Look, we know that we are being tagged every time we go to certain outreaches, one of which was the Blackbush Polder. We got calls, lots of the farmers, some of whom are members of the FC, indicated that we should go. We indicated to them too, that myself and Nigel, that we need as much suggestions as possible. You see, Kathy, what is happening is that the rice production costs are getting greater every day, literally. And that is kind of neutralizing whatever profits that the rice farmers are going to make. And they have asked government for further subventions in the form of probably a larger amount of fertilizer or insecticide or weedicide. And they're not getting, that which they had anticipated. I think they get a bag of fertilizer for an acre of rice cultivation and so on. And of recent times too, something that I can understand the difficulties with, the international market prices for rice has gone lower. And of course, it being something in what we had done a couple of years ago, bringing into the framework of the free market, because the government was asked by rice farmers several years ago, take the rice industry out of the government's hands. Well, the government did that. And they have to now fall back in line with what is free market prices. So when the price rise high, the farmers will make a big profit. But when it drops low and the cost of production is heavy, their profits are going to be nil or very minuscule. And that is what they ask of us to go and to see what's happening down there and to vent their spleen. Some of them were very, very vociferous about what government is not doing, and so on. And immediately, of course, afterwards, we saw Zulfikar going in there. And instead of listening to the farmers, he was putting a holler on the farmers and shouting them down. Because, of course, he was more angry that Nigel and Ramjatan went into Blackbush Polder, someplace they regard as their transport. Nobody else could go there. Well, we have gone there for the last period of time, 20 years almost, as a AFC and so on, and the people have always held us in respect because at least we listened to them and so on. Of course, the PPP also had tried very hard to get the farmers not to come and speak to us. Yes, they did their work because after we were told to go, we then tell people that we're going. And if you hear the kind of things that they start canvassing with the people and all kinds of silly things, one of which I should bring to the bear to Barbicians here. They said that how Ramjatan is at fault because Ramjatan had promised $9,000 a bag per paddy when they get into government. And when we got into government in 2015, we did not do that. I had to tell the fella, who a PPP man, that that is a total untruth. If indeed I had said $9,000 a bag, the PPP would have been playing it all over the place.
Yeah.
But this is how the PPP does their nasty propaganda. They fill the heads of the farmers with what the opposition now and government then had promised, and they didn't meet the promise, and so on and so on and so on. This rice industry, as rice people understand it, is mashed up as a result of largely the PPP and all its deal with Venezuela in relation to oil and paddy being sent over there and things like that. And we know what has happened. Now the Venezuelans are not our friends anymore. They're largely foes. We are not going to get any special prices from them. We don't get special prices from CARICOM, or, unless it is packaged and all of that, and so on. But the initial, what you call relay to the millers is where the problem is. The millers probably can make a couple dollars more because they process it. But that is not being passed down. And that is what the farmers are very vexed about. That the millers ought to do something better, not to give them $4,200 or $3,800. That was the range that they were telling us. Mm-hmm. To break even and to make profit is about $4,500. And to make a profit of $500 per bag is almost $5,000. And so they came up with suggestions and so on as to how we can get that. But it has all got to do with government subsidizing it. Now, as to the benefits of that, we'll have to still determine. But we had also asked them, and I must tell you that I was a little disappointed. A couple of them indicated that they're going to send the cost of production per unit acre or unit plot, which is a 15-acre patch, to us. I don't know if Nigel got any communication back with them, but I didn't get, and I usually try my best to get from them how much to cut, how much to shy, how much to workmen to shy the weedicide and the insecticide and so on. All of those. And let us make an assessment. Because I tell you honestly, I did tell Zulfikar, the people are not making money. And he said, no, they're lying. And they're making the money. That is why they go and plant the rice and so on. And this was almost every time I talked to Zulfi, they said, no, that is not true. They're doing well. Well, if that is so, I said, well, let us get from you two how much for a bag of paddy. So does the cost of production come down to about $800? Is that true? So that they can make a profit? But of course, rice farmers too, and I make this final point on this issue, they generally do not count their labor when they are peasant farmers. They don't count their labor. At the end of the crop, they will make a $5-6 million lump sum. Then they're going to start deducting all their costs, and whatever they're left with, they're left with. But that has to be calculated into the inputting of the cost. Mm-hmm. What it is their labor to go to the farm, to so many things they got to do, look at the water, all kinds of things they got to do, and regularly be at the farm to see when it is that they got to throw this and throw that and so on. And then when the
Yeah.
rainfall, harvesting, after harvesting, when to plow back and all of that. That's a heavy kind of labor that
Mhm.
they got to service the patches with and themselves. But
Yep.
we are still awaiting at least some of this. But of course, we got from Zulfikar a number of things, and also he started a shout down on the farmers. But I understand that the farmers are very disheartened. They're very disenchanted. A number of them calling me, and so on. What are we going to do? I said I want to raise it in Parliament because we do have a parliamentary seat, 9 seats in Parliament, and we're going to
Mhm.
raise it. But of course, I need at least some of these other facts as the cost of production and all of that.
Well, let's ask Nigel. Nigel, welcome
Yeah.
again. And you want to follow up on the situation
Sure.
with the rice farmers?
Sure. Happy Holly to all our Burmese listeners and to the listeners throughout the country. Everything Kemraj said is correct, but I wanted to add a couple of things. And Kemraj touched his last point where they get the lump sum. The Guyana Rice Producers Association is supposed to assist the farmers. And one of the areas of assistance that will help them. Now, nobody can predict what the price will be at the end of the next crop because that's the marketplace. But everybody knew that India and China were coming back into the market and were going to release increased amounts of rice onto the global market. And once you do that, prices will drop. Now, if that information had been relayed, and this is one of the persistent complaints, if that information had been relayed to the farmers, they would know how to adjust, as they say, fix themselves for the crop. So if they weren't going to plant a lot of rice because they know that their margins would be slimmer, then they would have been able to adjust. So what has happened now is that the predictions were that the price was going to drop. They borrow effectively they borrow money to buy the fertilizer, the urea and the 1515 because they buy that from the millers. That price has been more or less stable, but it's going up. And then, of course, when they're expecting a price that is similar to the last crop, and the last crop was a bumper crop, then, of course, now the price has dropped and they're left in a difficult position. The problem with that is this, too. A lot of them take crop financing, so they borrow money for 6 months in the hope that when they get paid, they'll pay it back. Now, the basis upon which they borrow that money is on the assumption that the price is going to be within a particular range, so they're going to be able to have they pay it back at the end of the crop when they reap. Now, what has happened now is, of course, when they reap, they're getting a lot less, and they still have that loan. So, in our listening to them, because we went there after they themselves had taken the initiative to protest, we asked them what were some of the measures that they would like to alleviate their difficulties. And one of them, of course, is effectively a rescheduling of that loan. Because, of course, what will happen is if they pay that loan back now, they're going to have to go and borrow a lot more money in a lot less stable circumstances to start to cultivate the next crop. Now, part of the assistance that GRPA should be giving to these farmers, and Kemraj touched on it, is how you cost your business. So they don't charge for labor, and they really should. But the Rice Producers Association and the government should be saying, look, guys, this is a volatile market. You are open to the ravages of the open market. You have big producers like China and India. But this is how you should really cost out this enterprise so that you don't end up in more debt at the end of the crop than when you started. And in cases like this, the government should really intervene, speak to the financial institutions. I think it's IPED, try and restructure some of the loans. But there should also be a system, and this is one of the things that we were discussing with them, where there is whether a subsidy or there's a trigger price at which a minimum trigger price so that they don't go under. Now, the other thing that was very, very important that led to the problems for some of them was that in some areas, the outflow canals were not cleaned when they should have been. What they do is they don't clean the outflow canals until it becomes a crisis, because then what happens is they give out contracts at higher rates to their friends and families. So they say, look, you got a problem with the Akasari. at the Trido Coca, whichever one it is, and they then give out contracts because, of course, it's got to be the outflow has to be cleared, and their friends and families get these contracts to clear at a higher price. The problem with that is that when that happens, sometimes there's flooding, and we passed a lot of rice that had been affected that had fallen down because the outflow was not clear. So there is a big problem with that. And again, the Water Users Association, heavily controlled by the People's Progressive Party, kind of helps create that situation, and they end up with these super contracts. There was one rice farmer, I think Hogger's name is his name, who's extremely articulate and articulated exactly the problem, what happens. And before the rice farmers in Blackbush were trapped because they thought the only thing they could do is the PP, and the PPP was the only solution to their problem. And so a lot of them felt previously that they didn't have a solution. But we were welcomed with open arms. There wasn't any fear. We went to all the gathering spots. We got up there very early in the morning, 6:37, and they spoke to us about the problems. We listened to them, and we told them we were going to come back when they finished cutting the crop, which is another 2 or 3 weeks, to get a fuller picture. We walked in the rice fields. So it's very important for this industry particularly, in which their produce, which they sell to the millers, who then sell in the open market. They get the necessary support and preparation. But I certainly want to assure them that we will be coming back, and recommendations that they made to us, we are going to follow up. So one of the things we said to them is, if the Rice Producers Association is not giving you the kind of market analysis that will allow you to determine how you plant for the next crop, then we will try and see if we can have some professional body or person try and provide that information. It's not going to give you the accurate price, but you know what's going to happen. You got a better sense of what's going on. And unfortunately, because they are, I suppose you call them smallholder farmers, they're treated with absolute abuse. Nobody has respect for them. But the second they protest, the second they seem to speak to the Alliance for Change, they get a reaction. The reaction they get is abusive. Sorry.
Yeah, I'm happy that the Alliance for Change stepped forward, and I really would like to pull David Patterson in now. And David, how would an AFC government handle this situation? Because some of what we're hearing, we've heard before on the previous PPP government. So we know that we're going to be running an election in a couple of months. I can say that we are a strong contender, a good option. Please give us an idea. What would we do to support?
Thank you very much, Kathy, and good night once again, viewers. Look, as they always say, all politics are local. The CARICOM has made a great declaration, 25 by 2025, which is what they have said to the entire CARICOM region, who import $6 billion worth of food products from outside of CARICOM annually. Now, if we are saying that we want 25% of the products must be CARICOM, come from CARICOM products we're going to consume, and if we're saying that the agriculture is the way to go, as a government, we have to step up in the sense that we have to be lobbying our other counterparts to take more of our rice, even if we set up a rice fund, whereby to cushion these rice farmers when the price is not as it is, it's quite low, because it rolls over, because next year it might be high, and you'll be able to balance it. But we must be able to sell to CARICOM, tell our farmers that we will give you a guaranteed minimum price and predictable, because we have a guarantee. Go to our CARICOM neighbors, we have a guarantee that you will take X amount of rice futures at X amount of dollars. And if as a government we have a lot of money, if we put it aside and say this is a rice fund here, so this year that the rice is at 4,000 barrels, our cut even is 4,005. we'll subsidize you the 500. When it's at $5,000 a ping, you replenish that fund. But we have a very captive market in CARICOM, and we should be targeting that. We should be using our diplomatic corps to lobby our person to say, listen to me, you've committed 25% of Caribbean food import to be grown and sold indigenously. We are committed to ensure that our farmers have a livable wage. And just like with the Natural Resource Fund, how you put aside money for future generations, those things like that,
Yeah.
we can do that for the farmers. They are Guyanese as well.
Yeah. Excellent, David. Excellent. Nigel, do you have anything you'd like to add? I know that for you, agriculture is an important sector of our economy again. So, any thoughts on that before we move on?
The other thing is the support that the farmers should be getting from NARI, research particularly. We saw there was what was supposed to be a drying facility in the Black Bush that has now worked for the last, I don't know, 4 or 5 years.
That's right.
So even the facilities that are set up to assist them in improving their efficiency do not work. And so the only thing I would add is that in terms of their production, the research that really should go into improving the production for the farmers and the efficiency in which they operate, that support should definitely be there. We should fund NARI greater research. I mean, we don't have the same limitations as we had before.
We have enough. The only way we can build our local small subsistence farmers is to provide support. You mean no more should we mean just a minuscule 2% of the wastage that we have on this infrastructures and the corruption and those things like that. 2%. That's not on the corruption that we have. I mean, which is billions of dollars. You know what I mean? And everyone in Berbice knows it. The guys that have their own giving out road contracts and you have to buy cement from the former minister's plant and those things like that. The former minister that had to resign, he has a plant of their concrete plant and they have to buy it from them. Cut out some of that, put aside for our people, because every single person should benefit in this thing. And we do this not only for the rice farmers, we do it for the other farmers. And then we will reach a stage where we are more than self-sufficient and where agriculture becomes the backbone, not oil and gas, because it's way more sustainable than oil, which is a 20-year life cycle.
Mm-hmm.
One thing, Kathy, wanted to add, food security.
That's right.
We need to develop the capacity. We're going to have to, the government is going to have to buy, and any government is going to have to start buying the rice and storing it. Exactly. So that when, for our own food security, God forbid if we end up in a crisis, we have the security. Even so, if we end up in a situation where the millers decide they're going to be exploiting the farmers, that stuff the rice that they have in storage can be released. Food security is an essential part of it. So that the government can buy, even if, for example, the millers don't get all the markets they need. Food security, I think, is particularly important.
Man, Niger not thing, but they do this every other country. You know what I mean?
Exactly.
Every other country is nothing new. You know what I mean? USAID. One of the programs of USAID is, and you see, I know how Trump is bringing, they buy at a guaranteed price the wheat from the farm and the soya and those things from the farmers in America, and they give it out. But the farmers in America have a guaranteed market because and the store. I mean, so when the Ukraine war started, Ukraine is one of the largest producers of wheat. The shock waves in America was not there because they had so much stored and available for themselves.
That's an excellent point, and of course that would impact on the cost of living challenges that we are having now.
Exactly.
So that I'm glad that you
ensure we could have a stable price in Guyana. So therefore, we mean for price, because we're producing it, and less vulnerable, we can actually control the price because you have the access capacity.
Good. Well, we remind the rice farmers that we are here supporting you and coming up with recommendations. And these gentlemen will be back to visit with you again. Gentlemen, we have a really, really worrying situation. personally, I continue to be pained when we consider the onslaught that we are getting from Venezuela. And why I use the word pained is because I know the other day we saw the president shaking hands with the leader of the opposition. But I feel that the people of Guyana need to know that a lot of the mechanisms that should be in place, like for example, the meeting of regular meeting and updates and a plan of action that should come from the Parliamentary Committee on Foreign Relations. That committee has not met for many, many months. And then, of course, there are the bipartisan and bilateral groups within the government. So it's, we continue to stand with the government on Venezuela. We believe Essequibo is ours. But it is sad that we're not being allowed to work together to really prepare the people of Guyana and to stand strong against Venezuela. Now, just a few days ago, and I think it's gone unnoticed in a kind of a way, we had the current minister, Minister Robeson Ben, saying that he is aware, the government know that there are Venezuelan sleepers in Guyana at this point in time. And this is just horrifying to think that so casually he would mention that without any in more information on what the government is doing. Now, this is at a time when Venezuela has said that they're going to have elections and come up with a governor for this region, for the Essequibo region. So to have Venezuelans that are quietly undercover for some nefarious purpose must be very, very worrying to all of us. Kemraj, you held the portfolio of Public Security Minister. Can you give me some of your thoughts on that? And then, of course, I'm going to come to both Nigel and David after to get their thoughts. But
Well,
Kemraj,
it came as a shock to me
yeah,
that the Minister of Home Affairs, who's in charge to a certain extent for national security and is the parliamentary spokesperson for that generally, came out to the public that they know that they are sleepers. That kind of knowledge, if they so know, ought to have led them to ensure that these people are sent back as early as possible because they are what is called a threat to an existential threat to the state of Guyana. Sleepers. I mean, that is like your spies that are inside of your thing. It's like that Trojan horse where and they could be destructive. And just to make, you see, the PPP has a problem now. It wants to tell the people out there, especially its support base, that it is in control of the situation, and we know this, we know that. Well, don't lie to them, because if you know, identify the sleepers for us and lock them up and probably send them away. I mean, unless they got some other kind of a sensitive operation and so on that they might want to catch all of them. But knowing Ben and knowing our commissioner of police, who is better at collecting gifts for his deputy, they ain't gonna do anything in relation to intelligence because there is absolutely no intelligence. I think it's a lot of ignorance, both at the ministerial level, at the Home Affairs, and at the Commissioner of Police. And they are doing such a bad job. That is why today you could have, another 37 million US dollars cocaine going out from Guyana to Trinidad. The thing is shameless. So it is not without some shock that I heard the utterance. And only just now I heard another utterance. He said we must shoot and scoot.
That's
What
right.
kind of nonsense is happening at the highest level of our cabinet and in relation to our security? Look, a lot of things I can say about Mr. Ben, but he ain't able to handle this thing because it requires intelligence, and you have to make not off the cuff comments of that kind, but also to ensure that whenever it's said, even if that is true, that you then answer the other questions that follow, and so you follow through with it. But we are in a very dangerous situation with the Venezuelans.
Yeah.
There are genuinely, in my book, a lot of them who have come because of the economic circumstances and the political persecution. As security minister for 5 years, we had to, what you call, ensure that we adhere to our international um, conventions
Yeah.
and so on, because you can't just go and chase the people away. It's once you get evidence that indeed these people are committing crimes or came here for to be sleepers and so on, well, then you can take that. But genuinely, because there are about 6 million Venezuelans all across Latin America, 3 million is in Colombia, lots and lots are in going through the Pacaraimos from Brazilian side into Brazil. Some have gone to Chile and a whole set of places they have gone to. And so 6 million of them have all around the place, and a lot of them going to the border of America through Mexico, and they're getting, of course, brought back home and so on. So there is genuine economic thing. But whatever it is, additionally, I know that there are many too, not many, but a few who are going to be the spies from Maduro and wanting now to get Guyanese involved with that elections, because they're talking to some Guyanese in relation to
Wow.
that elections
Wow.
that they want to hold sometime in May, so that he could declare a governor of this the Essequibo state or province, as he calls it. Now that is entering into a realm of tremendous. That's an act of war. That's an
Yep.
act of war that
Yep.
Maduro is entering into. And you know, not to be kept abreast, the whole situation and all of these kinds of things is going to break the back of the unity that is required to fight off the Venezuelans. And we got to do so much more. We got to fund the GDF. We got to ensure that we have our intelligence levels, the diplomatic work that we got to do. It's a massive exercise to win the
Yep.
support of CARICOM and OAS and even the Americans and so on. And I'm happy at least America has come out to state that
They will support.
they are going to be watching very carefully
Yes.
what America is doing.
Yep. Let me ask Nigel now. Nigel, your thoughts on this
Kathy,
worrying situation?
this
And
is the most frightening development in terms of national security. That the minister responsible for Home Affairs would make the statement that he knows that they are sleepers. Just to make a slight difference, this is not a Trojan horse situation. Trojan horse is where they're trying to get into the city. This is where the minister, this is a fifth column situation, where the minister has acknowledged that sitting in this country are Maduro's agents who are here for the purpose to do harm to Guyana. A sleeper is not in a country for any other purpose than to do harm to the host country in which they are located. The fact that he said that 3 days ago and the president has not made a single comment on this is the act of greatest betrayal to the people of this country, because they have heard the Minister of Home Affairs, who's responsible for internal security, say that they are sleepers. In other words, Maduro has people located in this country whose intentions are hostile and are waiting for the appropriate time to act. Well, if that is not the greatest threat to Guyana's security, I don't know what is. And to have the president say nothing is frightening. Worse than that, we have had a series of events. We have a helicopter crash. We lost 5 top people here, and we have not had any report on this. The absence of the report is going to lead to speculation as to whether or not how that helicopter reached its fate. 1. 2. We had our soldiers shot at on
Yeah.
the border. We couldn't provide the necessary medical treatment for them overnight. And we have not heard anything other than some diplomatic protest. There has been no reaction. We haven't moved more troops to the border. And then we had the most brazen attempt, which is when the Venezuelan naval vessel
Vessel.
went to our most I want to say, sacred economic asset and effectively let them know they're there and that they were naked and unprotected. No, the citizens of Ghana hearing this are going to put one and one together and probably end up with three. But even if they end up with two, these are consistent acts of aggression that have not been addressed by Guyana. All those Guyanese who live on border towns in which there's no protection, one policeman, no military base, subject to the sindicatos, assuming that wasn't a planned action with the support of the Venezuelan government in Caracas, are totally vulnerable. And how can the Minister of Home Affairs say that we have the sleepers? One, how many of this is basic information he should provide to us. How many sleepers did he discover? How many were sent back? Since he knows that they are here, what action does he intend to take? Imagine Donald Trump getting up and saying, I know that there are Russian spies in my government, and we've sent some of them, but it's unbelievable that there'd be no action.
Yeah.
Two, the minister and the government should tell us how many Venezuelans they suspect to be sleepers. Three, they should disclose
where they're located.
Sorry?
No, where they're located as well.
Where they're located, and they should disclose what is their procedure for processing them. Because in the event that there's an election, for example, in May, and they declare a governor, and the Venezuelans who are in Essequibo, probably Anna Regina, because that's where they say they're gonna make it, react en masse at different locations in Essequibo. What is our plan? What is the protection for our citizens? All the ministers probably have green cards, and all of them can jump and fly to their fancy houses overseas. What is going to happen to the average citizen who's going to have to deal with that situation?
Yeah.
We have called not only for the National Assembly, but we believe that there should be set up a permanent international body in Guyana, not international body, a permanent body of experts, of our best and brightest, irrespective of their political affiliation, to manage this border crisis, because we are now in a very dangerous stage. We've had the good fortune to have the Americans respond. The test of the pudding, as much as we are appreciative of them, is going to come when they open fire. Are we going to have boots on the ground at that? No, it's not hope. Hope is for the religious. What is our plan? What is our plan?
I got you. I want to bring David in. David?
Well, look, everything it is, everything that Kamraj and Nigel have said are absolutely valid. I want to take a different, slightly different approach, and I want to tell the people, as you said, that we want to make a recommendation. In 2023, the government of Guyana signed a $35.4 million with a Saudi Arabian and company to bring out an electronic ID card. Remember, that's 2 years now. Nothing is happening. Mm-hmm. So I want to recommend that the first set of persons that they issue these cards to are the Venezuelans that are here, so that we have a record of who is here. We have the biometric. And the card is just so we can have a record, so we can know where it is. We can know where the people are located, and we can find them back. But right now, we, as Cameron said, there's a loads of them. They're contributing as well. We have labor shortages. They're contributing in communities. They're right now living harmoniously. But we have no data on these persons who are here. So this $35.4 million contract, which obviously is friends to money to their friends, they can actually put it to good use. Say to every law-abiding, every Venezuelan here, you come, get your electronic card, register with us. And so just like how we have to walk with our national ID, these persons, and it's obviously just to identify them. It doesn't give them permission to vote or anything like that. But at least we now start to, and as each new person coming, or each migrant or refugee coming at the point of entry, you record them, so we can actually have some sort of plan. Because right now, if you could remember, Kathy, when asked the Minister of Foreign Affairs, when we asked him where and how many Venezuelan migrants are in the country, he got up and said this in Region 6. He said there's not a single Venezuelan in Region 6. And the next week, the Minister of Education produced a paper saying that there are 300 Venezuelan students enrolled in schools in Region 6. He got up and said, oh, there's no migrants in Region 10. And the people and our comrades in Region 10, people in Region 10 are videoing. This is my Venezuelan partner. He just came here. You know what I mean? So they have not a clue what's going on. So therefore, one of the first things we can do is probably start by having an honest record of everybody that is here. You know what I mean? So, and the card, they can use a card to do like any other business transaction and those things like that. But we will start to know where it is. So the slippers, we know where to concentrate our efforts to get the slippers. We know, and the only way the security cameras can work is with intelligence and with knowing what to anticipate, where to anticipate these happenings.
Thank you. I want, Comrade, a lot of Guyanese, and I'm raising this because I know I get asked about it, and a lot of Guyanese are concerned, not about the Guyanese of Venezuelan heritage that have a right to be here, but there appears to be, maybe as much as 100,000 Venezuelans here. And Guyanese are very worried about what impact they could have on an election. We hear stories about them getting ID cards and things like that. Kamraj, what comments you would make on this? Are those concerns legitimate?
Oh, there's very legitimate concerns. And we know that instead of dealing with the big issue of the existential threat of Maduro and all that he's doing in relation to Venezuela, the PPP is expending massive sets of monies and efforts to get Venezuelans who are going to be voters in the 2025 elections into the regions. We have evidence of that, especially in that Region 8. We won Region 8 by one single vote, that geographic seat, remember? One single vote. We now understand that they have gotten Venezuelans from the Region 8 area, the border, and so on, to come in. And they will be staying in and around the main towns of Region 8. 300-400 families literally being relocated there by some of these business contractors who are winning big contracts in the interior. A portion must go to ensure that the house is built for this new voter. So by at the end of the day, you get 1,000 more voters there. That can make the difference of a geographic seat now going to the PPP. These people, they ain't got no, what you call, a hesitation in doing these things. They ain't got no scruples in doing these things. And they're doing it and with the purpose of ensuring that they stay in power. So when they like to talk about other people rigging elections, they rig it long time. And a lot of people don't understand this thing. This PPP know how to use the geographic parliamentary seat. In these areas, it's a one Region 8, I think, at one parliamentary seat. We won by one vote, one single vote. They now arranging these people, give them house. And these businessmen, entrepreneurs and contractors, those crony capitalist class that I talk about, they're paying for them getting some of the houses there. And they making the people go there. And now they're going to become voters. And what do you think? All they're going to brainwash them is PPP. And that is where a close geographic region can be upturned into their favor. So we are seeing a lot of things happening. We are hearing a lot of things happening. But this is why I feel that there are serious implications, because a number of things can happen on election day when they see so much Venezuelans turning out to vote. One
Yep.
set of nonsense can happen.
Yep. We have, well,
Kathy, I
we
just
just,
wanted to add,
sure.
Kemraj's point is extremely important, but the other thing is this. What happens if in Venice, if in Essequibo, in certain regions, the number of Venezuelans outnumber the Guyanese? And then there's a call for, or they say, well, look, we are swearing allegiance to Venezuela. What is our capacity?
And they're all registered voters because the people
and they're all registered voters.
Yep.
Yep.
Well, that's
So
why
that's a real problem.
Nigel, that's my big fear.
That's right.
And I want the viewers in Region 6 to listen to what I just say and listen to what we're going to say here now. Kamraj is right. Our intelligence is saying that they're trying to put at least tens of thousands of Venezuelans to both of them. What if one of these sleeper agents that Rupes and Ben knows is here, that the government puts him on, or him or her on to the list because they think they, and he gets up on nomination day and forms his, because he's now legal, you now bring him there, he forms his own party, Viva la Venezuela, he names it, and he goes around the country and asks all the Venezuelans who the government has put onto the list, hoping that they would vote for him, to vote for Viva la Venezuela. You need 6,000 or 7,000 votes to get a seat. So that sleeper agent, who the government has foolishly and dangerously put onto the list, forms his party, and he gets 14,000 votes. And he comes to Parliament, and every parliamentary speech, because you have freedom of speech in Parliament, you can't be sanctioned for what you say in Parliament. Every parliamentary speech he gets up and says, Essequibo belongs to Venezuela. Of course, we may outnumber him, but that has traction. That's the exact same background that Russia used to take over Crimea. Get a few Russian-speaking Crimea, get them into Parliament, get them into government, and then say, "Oh, listen to me, Mr. Putin, please come and help me. I'm legitimately elected because the government again, the PPP has given me a card." I fool them. I tell them I vote for them, but I form my own party, and we are being persecuted. And this is, I'm calling now as a member of Parliament of the Guyanese for you, Mr. Maduro, to come and save us. We are in very dangerous, troubling waters because of the short-sightedness and the greediness of the PPP.
Yeah. I mean, you have a country that is taking a portion of your land, and you would actually have their nationals in that same area.
Exactly.
You know,
and holding
like
an elections.
Holding an election. It's totally crazy. It is totally crazy.
And when you bring them onto electoral, just like the Chief Justice, and they like to say it that once you're on the list, you can't come off.
Yep.
So once you give these people, you put it on the list, you know what I mean? And they say, oh, the Constitution say once you're on the list, you can't come on. You very, very dangerous grounds. Very, very short-sighted these PPP persons are. Very, very good. So people in Region 6, you pay heed to what's coming and don't buy into the propaganda that they're saying, that they're selling.
Nigel, you had something you wanted to add? I saw you.
No, I was saying that the failure to even notify the parliamentarians, all three of you are parliamentarians, about this crisis is beyond the national embarrassment. We are really facing a real threat. I wouldn't even say it's an existential threat. It's a real threat. Our military is about 3,500 strong. They're not on the border. Most of them are not on the border.
Yeah.
We don't have the technology to even intercept any sort of intrusion, whether by air, by land, by water. So what really is the plan? And the PPP, the president has said nothing. We have touched tonight on very critical areas. You would have thought by now, where the opposition has said on the borders we are with the government to protect it, you would have thought by now, given the level of this threat, that at least they would have convened at a minimum all the major opposition spokespersons on this and come up with a plan. Because this is not a threat to the PPP, this is a threat to Guyana.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, like with most tragedies, you don't wait for the accident to say, I should have changed the smooth tire. You don't want to get to that accident. I don't want to be called at 2 o'clock in the morning by David or Kemra to say, Chief, I'm gone with Anna Regina. What are we going to do? We're going to jump up and say, because we have no plan. There is no plan. There is no plan. We haven't even said, hey guys, let's form a collective team. Let's go to various capitals, make representations, even at the most basic technological level. Everybody buys satellite time. Every single person is available. It's not a national, there's nothing secret about that. At least you could buy satellite time and see what is going on. You got to have a plan. What are your top military people doing? There's no sense of alert, increased awareness or tension at the level of the military. And unfortunately, what's going to happen is that, some village, I don't
Kathy, I want to make an additional point here.
Yes, go ahead, Kamrat.
And it is in relation to training your population. I have always done massive readings in relation to Israel and the Arabs. Mm-hmm. And as you know, that little country Israel, I mean, I am disgusted at the behavior against the Palestinians, but whatever it is, they managed as a small country to keep at bay everybody around them. You know why? Because they trained their people. They were united about their defenses. We don't see that in Guyana. And even the political divisions do not want to even talk about it. Mm-hmm. Remember, Bornham, they talk about national service. Oh God, oh Lord, this is a black man thing and so on. Well, that is a lot of BS. Yeah. Because we as East Indians, we as Amerindians, we as black people, Portuguese and all of them, we somehow got to learn to get ourselves involved in the defense. And I go back to my constitution. In that constitution, the first duty of Guyanese citizen is the duty to defend the state. But that PPP government there feel that the GDF, made up largely of Afro-Guyanese, will have to do that job.
Yeah.
Them go do all kind of other corrupt activities, which we can't talk about in Parliament because the Speaker blocked me from even using the word. And Barbicians must understand that we all got to make sure that we fight for our country. Mm-hmm. We must fight, not because, and that is why we have to get the training and so on. Whether it's a kind of a, what did they call it? The People's Militia or some such thing. But our young people, because when that thing comes happening in the Americans not going to want their sons and daughters to come and die for Guyanese rice farmers at Blackbush and cane cutters and all of that. The cane cutters and the rice farmers got to be there.
Yeah.
Blood must not only be shed by one ethnic group. And that's the danger of this thing. Because the PPP seem not to want to talk about these things. You got to confront these things.
Well, Kamrat,
I wanted to add something to
if you just look, just one second. If you just look at the fact that as citizens, we're not given any instruction that if you see something, you hear something, this is who you should call, this is what you should do. And it's even worse for the persons living in those areas on the border communities. Sorry, Nigel, go ahead.
You're touching exactly the point. Intelligence.
Yeah.
Intelligence is extremely important. I remember this is I just go back to an example. 1976, my parents were going to Israel, flying into Israel and El Al. 2 weeks before they boarded the flight, the Israeli Mossad came and interviewed them because it was standard for all passengers going into Israel. And that's 1976, before suicide bombs, ISIS, what have you. Yeah. And that's a small country. Those are measures. Intelligence is the most actionable form of undertaking you can take. Yeah. You got to process it.
Yep.
And we have no sense, like you said, we don't know if something happened tomorrow and you're living in Golden Fleece or you're living in Charity, you don't have a clue
Yeah. What
other
to
than
do?
people going on social media and getting
Mhm.
excited saying, oh God, you know what happened? We have no plan.
Gentlemen, we are very close to completing our program, but there is one other issue that I really felt strongly that we should look at. And I wanted to raise, I noticed just a couple days ago some of the religious organizations talking about the tone that we are hearing from the vice president at his press conferences. The most derogatory terms used against persons that are critics of the government. As we close off, I would like to get a comment from you guys on that kind of behavior, the kind of message it sends to young people. So please share your thoughts on that briefly.
All right, let me say that this president of the VC that we got is very reprehensible. But there is a method to his madness when he comes up with these despicable antics. It is distraction. Distraction from the Guyanese understanding why their problems are in relation to rice farming and the cost of production so high and all of that. He takes charge and everybody now got straight on to him, and the topic is what he's talking about. Not realizing that Venezuela, we got to get intelligence, we got to support the GDF, we got to train and conscript probably our people into the whole movement for a defense of the country. He gone and he settled us with one set of nonsense. So it is distraction from the harsh realities that we are paying. And that is his smartness. He's cunning about that.
David or Nigel, any comments on that
Well,
or any other?
I want to support Nigel's Cameron's point. Not only distraction about over the PP, he acts as a bulwark for a finale for the president a finale. So therefore, we concentrate on him, and no one
Right.
looks at that a finale and his performance. You know what I mean? He
Big
just
distraction
dances on.
there, yes.
Yes, there dances on stage, me call doing everything like that, and have not have not moved the dial for our country. Cost of living is high, crime, road accidents. I mean, you name it on every index, every single index in the indices that you have that measures how good a country are. We're failing. So Jaguar will come and he cross out and we get offended by that. But nobody has sit down to ask Irfan, you mean other than dancing on stage to Thriller, what
Yep.
really are you doing? You know what I mean? And so that's his purpose.
Yep. Well, somebody the other day was saying to me how sad it was that the Venezuelan vessel was in Guyana's waters and the president was cooking
Yes, that's
for
it.
an ex-convict. Not my
Ex-
words. I'm just
Exactly.
saying what somebody said to me.
That's the
Nigel.
I think that's a good example to close on because you remember 9/11. President Bush was at a school of sixth graders,
Yeah.
and you actually saw the man come up and whisper in his ear, and he got up and he left. We had our president cooking with reggae artists who of questionable background, and it was not until the people from the FPSO called and say, "Hey, Venezuela here," that we knew what was going on. I just want to say to
that
people
he stopped
tonight,
cooking too.
indeed, I just want to say to people tonight that we are in exceedingly grave circumstances. If you look at the actions of Venezuela, they have got worse on each occasion. The shooting, then the military intervention. We still haven't heard what happened with the helicopter. And on each occasion, we failed to act. We have not even, as they say, take a hint to say, well, okay, now we got to start talking about conscripting people or training. Venezuela has mandatory national service, and there
That's
are
right.
people who have to go into the army. That's
Yeah.
Venezuela.
Yeah.
We are allowing military aged, able bodied men and women into this country and told that they are possibly sleepers, and we have done nothing.
Nothing. Yeah.
I don't want to be alarmist, but you process that. Because what will happen is those who are responsible for your fate, your safety, sorry, will get on a plane, just like how Marcos and the rest of them fled, and you will be left here in chaos. There'll be a period in which there's nobody in charge, and there with their billions will be sitting down elsewhere. Sit down and wake up, Guyana. Wake up.
Lovely. Yeah.
All right. So we are actually out of time. Let me thank you, gentlemen, for a very interesting conversation. On a positive note, we hope that some of the concerns raised in this program, and we say to citizens in Region 6 and all through Guyana, let your voices be heard. You need to use social media. You need to, write your letters to the newspapers demanding that we are better informed with regards to our territorial integrity. And I see Nigel. Yes, Nigel. You just remembered something.
The Americans have made their position on the Cubans known, Cuban medical service. I think we should appreciate how many people in this country have been trained in Cuba, and we have not yet heard a position from the president of Guyana in relation to Cuba.
Yep.
You understand from the vice president, they don't want to do diplomacy in public, but this is an important issue that we can't wait to respond when it's too late to respond. I'm sorry for interrupting, but that
Yep. Well,
No,
that's
that
a
was a
good
vital
point.
point.
That's a very good point. And when they don't want to do diplomacy in public, but our good friend Prime Minister of Barbados, Mia Mottley, has said very plainly that she will give up her visa.
and Mr. Rowley,
And Mr. Rowley and
Ralph
Prime
Gonzalez.
Minister of St. Vincent, Mr.
Yeah.
Gonzalez.
But
And
just
they-
let me make this point. Remember when
Yes.
Ukraine was invaded? When Ukraine was invaded, the AFC went outside of the Russian embassy,
Yes.
and we protested the invasion. You never
Yep.
see PYO or the WPO or anybody protest, or the PPP government.
That's
They didn't
true.
want to say anything against Russia. Russia trained plenty of them to become economists and doctors and all kind of thing.
Yep.
But we stood our principle in the AFC. We went there and I just want us and the world to know that we had protested the Russians in relation to that.
Yes. Yes. Okay. Well, thank you very much. Thank you to DTV for having us on the air tonight. Thank you to the viewers for having us in your homes. We want you to enjoy the rest of the holidays, this holiday weekend. Be safe on our roads, and we'll see you next week. Same time, same place. Thank you.
All right. Thank you.
Thank
Good
you.
night,
Good night.
everyone.
Good night.
Good night.